Why do we fight things we cannot control? Is there a way forward when the world refuses to cooperate? Otto and Rhett stood on the edge of the high plateau. They were mapmakers obsessed with marking the exact borders of the land. They were rivals hired by different kingdoms to claim the territory. Otto held a heavy compass, determined to draw his lines straight through the jagged rocks. Rhett held a bundle of thin wooden markers, convinced that the best map followed the natural curves of the earth. A strong wind began to rise. It swept across the plateau with a low, whistling sound. "The wind is nothing," Otto shouted over the noise, his face red with frustration. "My compass is right. I will build my stone markers in a straight line, no matter what the wind does." Rhett laughed, his voice thin against the rising pressure. "Your stones will fall, Otto. I am planting my markers deep. The earth will hold them, even if the wind pushes." They began their work. Otto shoved his heavy stones into the hard ground, fighting the gusts that tried to knock him over. He leaned into the wind, straining his muscles to force his will onto the mountain. Beside him, Rhett hammered his wooden poles into the soft soil, ignoring how the wind bent them. By midday, the wind became a frenzy. It did not just howl, it tore at the ground. Otto's stones, placed in a rigid line, began to fall. Because he had fought the wind, he had ignored the loose rock beneath his feet. As the gusts hit his wall, the ground gave way, and his heavy markers tumbled into the deep crack below. Rhett fared no better. His thin wooden poles snapped like dry twigs under the force of the gale. He watched his work break and fly into the dark valley, his hands empty and shaking. They stood together as the wind forced them to step back. Their stubbornness had left them both with nothing to show for their work. The wind did not care about their maps or their kingdoms. Otto looked at the pile of rubble. He looked at Rhett, whose face was pale with the realization that his plan had failed just as completely. "We are measuring a ghost," Otto said quietly. Rhett nodded. He knelt and picked up a smooth piece of stone that had survived the collapse. Instead of trying to build a wall, he used the stone to scratch a map into the flat, solid floor of the plateau, a place the wind could not reach. Otto dropped his compass. He joined Rhett, kneeling on the hard rock. Together, they began to trace the true shape of the land into the mountain itself. True understanding is found only when we stop trying to force our will upon the world. When our methods fail, we are finally free to see what remains. Success begins the moment we stop fighting the reality in front of us.